Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Tantrat Shrimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Shrimad Bhagavad Gita ki jai, Shri Prabhupada Shri Gurudev ki jai, Harinam Sankirtan Yajna ki jai, Gaura Premanande, Dhiri Bol Jai. Hare Krishna, welcome everybody for today's session on conceptual overview of Bhagavad Gita. And today we are discussing session number 8. We will touch upon different yoga systems which Krishna delineates in his Bhagavad Gita. There are different yoga systems. We touch upon all of them, understand, and also we'll discuss the yoga ladder. It's like it can envision like a ladder, and then we'll try to understand what is the best of these yoga systems. Okay, so these are all meant to be done today. So in the introduction, we discuss importance of human life, importance of reading Bhagavad Gita, which is a manual for life, and also how to study through a devotee who is already practiced in the disciplic succession. Then we touched upon 5 main topics. Among them, Ishvara, Jiva, Prakriti, Kala, Karma. Among them, the karma is the only one which is temporary because it can be exhausted to zero. That's what we discussed in the last session, where by doing the Ananya Bhakti, we can remove the Prarabdha karma. Of course, Prarabdha karma gets zero only when the body, is given up. But most of the effects can be nullified. And then we have Sachita karma, which is a collected karma, which is like, it's burned to ashes, just as the firewood is burned to ashes because of the fire of devotion. And the Kriyamana karma, the one which is created, also will not be there because devotee is conscious that every minute he is only going to do things which are in service to Krishna. So he is not going to generate new karma anymore. So in that way, he is actually already Jivan Mukta. Even though he's in this world, he's not of this world. He's just doing already activities of the spiritual world. Always 24 hours engaging in Vishnu's or Krishna's service. So that is what we discussed last time. We discussed all of this. And now we are in this phase, different yoga systems. Actually, we will cover all of this today. So, because it's a summary version, so we'll put it in a very unique way. So we can touch upon all of them and give the essence. At the same time, kind of make a ladder and see them all in one shot. Okay. So let's do. So first of all, let's understand what is yoga. So can all of you share when you hear the word yoga, what do you feel? What comes to your mind?
Movement of body and resting of your mind, alignment, I would say. That's what we have learned.
A bit like asanas. Like usually
Yes.
people think of hatha yoga, like you do asanas, right? Like
Correct.
that's yeah, very good. Okay, what about Sujata Bharati? You have any other thoughts?
Yoga, I mean, as far as I know, it's a regular exercise that we do for a body, for a mental peace.
Okay, that's very good. So, okay, next Sujata, yeah.
Yeah, same thing, but it's a kind of practice, not only exercises, it's some kind of practice to align with the God, to align body and
correct.
mind with the God and our breathing also.
Okay, very good. So this word yoga has been very much in common use because of the asanas, hatha yoga basically, of actually by Patanjali Rishi. Patanjali is the one who gave this Ashtanga yoga, which has yama, niyama, pranayama, pratyahara. There are 8 stages. That yama is to do's and niyama is don'ts or reverse. It could be reverse. And pranayama. Pranayama is part of that fold. And that's what people consider as yoga, where we control the breathing. Because of the breath control, we can also be attaining peace. So that's how usually yoga is known as. But then, as Sujata mentioned, it's a generic term actually. Wherever when we align ourselves to the Supreme, that is yoga. So if you go back to the root word, Sanskrit a little bit, and go back to the root word and understand the meaning of the the dhatu. Dhatu is nothing but the root verb used for a word, and the pratyaya is a suffix which is added to that, and everything has a meaning. Panini is Vyakarana, gives a meaning. What's the meaning of the dhatu? What's the meaning of the pratyaya? When it's add, what happens? Like that, when we understand that, then we get a deeper meanings of the same word. So yoga is coming from yuj plus ghai pratyaya. Yuj is a dhatu. But if you look up yuj in the dhatu table, actually there are 3 yuj with different meanings. So there is yuj samadhau. Samadhi, you know, right? Samadhi you can understand. It's like, deep meditation or concentrate. Then yujir yoge. Yoga, in this context, it means joining, uniting, or applying. Yuj samyamane. In this, it means restraining or controlling. You can imagine, right, how this yoga, what we know narrowly in English, now when we expand ourselves to Sanskrit world, we can get a deeper and more wider meanings. So in first meaning, it means internal stillness, mental absorption. The second meaning, it means connecting to entities, applying effort. Third meaning, governing the senses and binding. So if all of them we put together, usually any yoga process is meant to accomplish these things. Control of the mind and senses and uniting them with Supreme. Okay. The mind and senses are roaming everywhere into the material world, trying to enjoy. So withdrawing them back from there and also putting them in a positive use. So any yoga system, whatever the multiple yoga systems we are going to talk, will have to accomplish all of these actually. So then only it's really considered a yoga. Okay. So this is a summary of all the, put everything together. So bhakti yoga, if you talk about also, it will also accomplish control of mind and senses, and it will also unite them with the Bhagavan, Krishna, Sri Krishna. So then another important point is Sanatana Dharma is a principle we need to understand. Dharma is nothing but actually there is no literal English translation equivalent to dharma, word dharma. People call it religion, but religion is very, it changes. Like somebody can be born a Christian and later they can change to Hindu. Then you say religion has changed. But Sanatana Dharma is the eternal kind of, the beauty of the soul, right? Eternal. So what is that eternal duty is to serve, actually. So right now in this world also, we can see all of us, even if you are devotee or non-devotee, they are always serving. We are serving our children, we are serving our husbands, we are serving our boss. We are actually serving, even though we think we are enjoying, we are enjoyers, but actually our enjoyment comes in serving. And we do all of this, but because of serving all of this without connection with Krishna, we are actually getting frustrated. We are not satisfied. But Sanatana Dharma, Jivera Swarupa Hoy, Krishnera Vidya Das. So the way or the real service are meant to be done to Krishna or Vishnu or any of the avatars, as watering the root of the tree nourishes the whole body. So that's how when we serve Krishna directly, then all the other services are also completely executed properly and everybody will be satisfied with us. So that's why it's called, and this is not related to religion, like Christian or Muslim or everybody is going to, maybe they will choose their own path of how to execute it. But eventually all the religions talk about love for God actually. Maybe the description of the God is different for different religions, that's different. The complete description is given in Krishna consciousness, where all the details of what Krishna wears, he has a curly locks of hair and he wears a peacock feather on his crown and he has a shaksha earrings. He has eyes like a lotus flower, lotus petals, and his lips are so red like a bimba fruit. So nice descriptions are given. And how does it act? What are his desires? What pleases him? What he likes? See, my spiritual master often says, how can you love somebody you don't know anything about them, right? See, if you want to fall in love with somebody, you need to know everything about them. What do they like? What they don't like? How do they wear? How tall they are? What is their age? How do they look? Right? Krishna is bluish black in color, rain like a fish rain cloud. So all these details, the more we know the details, and we're like, yes, I like this person. I want to fall in love with this person. So that complete knowledge is given in our Vedic scriptures, especially Srimad Bhagavatam. Okay, so now before we begin into the different stages of yoga system, we need to understand why, first of all, there are different systems. Why can't just be one thing, it's simple. Let be one thing, everybody calls that. And actually, there's a very nice shloka like that. Eko Deva, Vasudeva Krishna. There's only one God who's Krishna, they says like that. But because we have varieties of human beings with different inclinations, different vasanas, different journeys, different stages, and different conditions we are in, because of which there are different systems. Because not everything will attract everybody. See, all of us also, somebody may like more sweets, somebody may like more bitter, somebody may like more spicy stuff. No, within the taste of rasa only, there's the tongue taste, there's so many varieties. So how can we assume that everybody will follow the one path, one God, right? So that's why there's variety. So if you broadly classify human beings, one reddish people or the people who are not even in the system is called lawbreakers, where they don't care about anything. All they want is just enjoy. There is a Charvaka Muni who founded this atheistic philosophy. He says that somehow or the other you buy ghee. Ghee is supposed to be most valuable to you. You steal or you beg, borrow or something, you get ghee. That's what he says. Doesn't matter. Just think this life is the only life for you. Enjoy to the maximum extent. Doesn't matter. You trouble others. So that is these people. So we don't want to think about them. Now there are some people who understand, oh, we need to follow certain laws. Otherwise, we will get in trouble. Only to some extent, I will be safe. But after that, I'll get caught. Right? So then they will be conscious from the beginning, not break the laws. So within that, Karma Yoga is one aspect. Within that, there is Sakama Karma Yoga, Nishkama Karma Yoga. The Sakama Karma Yogis are the people who, according to the Vedas, there are certain, Vedas have given, lenience. Like say, if you want to attain Swargaloka, there is certain procedure, yagas you need to perform, so that in next life you can attain Swarga. So similarly, if you want to eat meat also, there is a proper procedure by which you do certain offering and then eat the remnants, and there's a way. But by which they are at least regulated. They don't do like these people randomly, anytime they want. Anytime we go on the shop, if they see meat, they keep eating. But here there's a regulation. They follow the Vedic injunctions to regulate their desires. So that gradually, because they're following an authority, they gradually over many lifetimes they'll get purified and they can understand actually, there's no point in going to Swarga also. I will again come back to this material planet. So what's the point, putting all this effort, doing all this and enjoying Swarga for some time and again coming back? So rather they will start doing Nishkama without desire. So they start detaching from the results. They give to some charity or they give to some education or some house, something. Slowly they get detached from the results. Okay, I want to do things only as a matter of duty, for the sake of duty. That's it. I'm not expecting anything. I'm just going to maintain my life, try to do minimal. So, but still they keep doing work because they cannot stop doing work. So that is in the Karma Yogi. They connect with Sarma, essentially, actions. And there are other yogis called Jnana Yogi, Ashtanga Yogi, and Bhakti Yogi. So to explain these things and what the process is and what the goal is, what it accomplished, we need to again go a little bit into technicals. So that's what I will explain later. All of this will come later. Okay. So for that, let's go to technicals and let's revise what we discussed when we discussed Ishvara. This is discussed about Supreme Source. Right? We call him Absolute Truth, Param Sattvam. So that Param Satyam or Param Satyam, we said it's a source of all the worlds, material and spiritual worlds, and also is the source of all the avatars. So he is avatari, right? That's what we discussed. And what we discussed, source of all the worlds is Aham Sarvasya Prabhavo, Tatta Sarvam Pravartate. And this just deep recap of what we discussed. That Krishna is actually original source, and then comes Parano Daksha Vishnu. And from his exiles, all the universes come. Within that, he enters again. That is Sabho Dakashayi Vishnu. And then he expands within each of the living entity as a super soul, as Paramatma, as Kshiro Dakashayi Vishnu. So, but the source of all the three Vishnus is Krishna. So that's how he created the material world. And similarly, all the spiritual worlds Krishna expands as Balarama who maintains the spiritual worlds. So in that way, Krishna owns all the worlds. He is the proprietor and the source. And also we discuss how he is avatari, right? He is the source of all. These are the main 10 avataras, but there are innumerable. They're as if like the countless, just as the waves come in the ocean. That many avatars keep coming to this world to give again whenever yada yada hi dharmasya glani bhavata bharata apyuttanam adharmasya tadatmanam sujamyaham. Sujamya, I manifest myself whenever when there is a decline of religion. The yuge yuge he says, right? He comes again and again. So, but then this Bhagavatam verse says Krishna Su Bhagavan Swayam. Right? That we discussed that he is the original one and original Bhagavan, and this are all have the same potency, just that they manifest their features based on the circumstance as much as needed. But only as Krishna, he manifests the full 64 opulences. That's a different. But otherwise, everybody is Vishnu Tattva. Whomever we worship, we can go to Vaikuntha free from cycle of birth and death. Okay, now we will connect back to this yoga systems. Similarly, there is another concept called the 3 ways to realize this absolute truth. The same absolute truth, Krishna, can be understood in 3 phases, or 3 stages. So what is that? Vadanti tat tattvavidastattvam yajnanam advayam dhammeti paramatmeti bhagavan iti shabdyate. So Srimad Bhagavatam says that tattvam, param tattvam, right? Tattvam, advayam jnanam, that undual, non-dual knowledge means that's only one basically. There's one supreme, right? That knowledge can be understood. Tattvavidaha means the person who is very intelligent, or the scholars, vadanti, they speak of that as Brahman, Paramatma, Bhagavan. So these are all the aspects of the same absolute truth. Okay? Iti shabdyate means this is what is spoken about. So the same absolute truth is understood as Brahman, Paramatma and Bhagavan. We touched about Paramatma in earlier play, how he is like travels with the soul, is a well-wisher of everybody, and he fulfills, he is the Upadrashta Anumanta, he is overseer and permitter, and also at the same time he is like a neutral witnessing bird. But whereas the jiva is eating all the fruits from the tree and enjoying or suffering, but the soul, super soul is waiting. Srila Prabhupada calls it super soul. He's waiting for the soul to turn towards him and ask, okay, I'm done with this world. Please tell me what else is there. Then he will guide to the devotees association. We discussed about Paramatma earlier. And that Paramatma is also Kshirodaksha Vishnu, the expansion of Bhagavan. Right? And what is this Brahman? That's where we need to understand little bit. So this Param Tattvam, if you have to explain in a chart, Bhagavan is a source and he can be realized as Brahman as well as Paramatma also. So again, we have to do the overall, the one overarching person is Bhagavan. But whereas people can understand in different phases. If somebody sees from far, this whole cone, they only see only this much. But still they will tell, I'm seeing the cone. Somebody may see only this much. Basically, they understand only Paramatma. But they still say, I'm understanding the absolute truth or the cone. Somebody may see only this much fully. Then say, yes, I'm seeing the cone. Right? So similarly, there are multiple ways we can understand the same person. Another practical example is, Srila Prabhupada gives example of a train. Let's say train is entering the station. That from far is coming. From far, the person staying on the station can only see light and sound, which doesn't have any form. In the sense, it's all very blurry, cannot really make a shape. But he says, yes, I see the train is nothing but light and sound. That's what this person describes. That is misunderstanding. Nirbula, without any qualities. They understand that Supreme Lord as just the energy without any qualities. So they see the train is only light and sound. As the train comes closer, and if it's crossing again, it stays for some time and again crosses, the person who's standing on the station can see, oh, it has 20 bogies, it has AC compartment comes in the first, other bogies come in the back, and the windows are like this, it's this color, and it just actually train goes to this destination, it goes at this much speed, it's going to start in 2 minutes. They know a little bit more details of the train, right? So that is the Paramatma. They understand Krishna as four-handed Vishnu form within the heart, standing on the lotus flower, and he's holding the conch shell, Gada, Padma, and Shankha, Chakra, Gada, Padma. He's holding. So that is still some little bit personal features are there. Oh, actually, he wears yellow color dhoti, and he has a kirita, and he's Makara Kundala, and he has jewelry. So all these things, that is the Vishnu form within the heart. Okay? That is little bit personal, more personal than the energy. And when the suburbs train is stopped now, and you are supposed to ascend the train, so you enter and go inside, then you go to your own compartment and you sit in your chair, then you say, yes, my seat is 16D. And this is a window, there is a plug point where I can plug in my charger. And this person is sitting in front of me. The seats are a blue color, and this where I'm going to sleep. So they know full details. Okay, there is AC compartment, there's a block, and you can enter from one compartment to other compartment. There's a coach for the rider of the coach. All the details you know once you enter the coach. So similarly, once you enter the spiritual world or the first yogi will actually know all the details actually of Bhagavan, who they also know all of this because he's the source of all of this. They know him as Paramatma, they know him as energy, but at the same time, they know many, many more details about this absolute truth. Okay. So now same thing. So what happens is, now we'll define what is Bhagavan. Just give a definition. We keep telling what is Bhagavan, right? There's a definition for Bhagavan. Aishwaryasya samantrasya dharmasya yashasashya jnana vairagya yoshchaiva shannam bhagat ipindana. So if you go to Sanskrit again, Bhagavan is formed with the word Bhaga plus Vat. Vat is a suffix, Bhaga. Then Bhaga, what is Bhaga? We need to understand. Bhaga is defined here. Bhaga means opulence. Vat means one who has the opulence. Okay, one who has the opulence. Vat pratyaya, like for example, we say Dhanavan. Then it's one who has the Dhanam. It's called Dhanavan. Or we can say Dayavan. One who has Daya is called Dayavan. So similarly, Bhagavan is one who has Bhagas. What are the Bhagas? Bhagas are 6 of them opulences. What are the 6 opulences? Aishwaryasya, complete dominion of all the wealth. He has full wealth. Samagra Aishwarya, Dharmaha, and full religiosity. Yashaha, full kirti. It is fully famous, completely famous. Wealth. She means wealth, beauty. She means wealth and beauty. Jnanam, complete knowledge, and Vairagyam, at the same time, complete renunciation. So the person who has all of them in full, complete, that nobody can exceed him in all these aspects, he is called Bhagavan. Yeah. So that is described as Shri Krishna in Gaudiya Vaishnava Parampara. So, and actually in this world also, whenever we see somebody having part of it, we get attracted. If somebody is knowledgeable, in some scriptures or any field, we'll be like, oh, wow, amazing. They can speak like this. They can quote like this. You get attracted. Or if somebody is very beautiful, like all this, Miss World, Miss Universe, then we get attractive. But then it's all temporary. It's more within 10 years, they will lose their beauty. And somebody is famous, like cricketers or film stars, you get attracted. So whenever we are attracted to anybody, because of all these things, actually we are getting attracted to Krishna. We want Krishna. We want actually, because it's because of Krishna's aspect is manifested through them. That's what is attracting us actually. But if somehow we get this knowledge and you repose our attraction to the original person, we will be completely happy and satisfied. Another thing is, he is described that Sat Chit Ananda Vigraha. His body is not made of earth, water, fire, air, and ether like all of our material bodies. His body, you cannot say made of. His body is. He and his body are not different. Soul itself has a body. The soul, Sat, is eternal. Chit, full of knowledge. Ananda is full of happiness. So he's completely eternal and is full of knowledge and is full of happiness. That is his form. And being his part and parcel, we are also actually, the soul is also Sat, Chit and Ananda. But when we're trying to enjoy this material world, we only experience Asat. We only experience temporarity, vapors, The happiness we experience in a movie immediately gets over after the movie gets over. And we experience so much ignorance that we get up and we don't even know what to do, what not to do. We are confused and everything, right? And we are also Nirananda. We are not really happy. So to come to the original nature, we need to follow some yoga process by which all the contamination is removed. So we can realize that we are also Satchit and Ananda. So that's where we are coming to. So now coming back, so Brahman, we talked about 3 phases, right? This Brahman effulgence actually is nothing but Krishna's bodily effulgence. This is what people will see as the energy, right? And in this realization, or when somebody realizes the Brahman, that means they want to become a spark in this life. The goal of a person who wants to realize Brahman is nothing but a Jnana Yogi. They want to become just a spark in this life. They only realize that there. They only realize I exist. That's it. There is no relationship, there is no exchange, there is no love, nothing. They just exist. Of course, it's beyond the cycle of birth and death, for sure. There is a Brahman effulgence also in the spiritual world, right? So, but then they experience only the eternality feature. And the yogis, dhyana yogis who meditate, the dhyana yoga is described in 6th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, where Krishna says, oh, one has to put a kusha mat, one has to go to forest, one has to close eyes half closed, one has to focus on the tip of the nose, one has to control his breathing, one has to withdraw from the other allurements. And like that, he has to do for many, many years. He does like that, going slowly, he will begin to realize the Paramatma within the heart. Okay. So then he will become very, very happy. Oh, I want to serve this Paramatma. That person realizes that, and he also becomes above the cycle of birth and death, so eternality. But he also gets some knowledge. Okay, Vishnu is like this. He is as a lotus flower. He stands. He holds Shankachakra Gada Padma. He realizes some cosmic features. But the Ananda part is still missing. It's not complete. But this is Bhakti Yogi. When he follows the path of Bhakti Yoga, he has complete realization of Satchit Ananda features of the Krishna, how he enjoys with his covered voice, how there's so much happiness in Bhakti Rasa. And, I wish I would also be part of that exchange. I can also talk to Krishna. I want to see him. Then when he feels like that, then he has a complete realization of the complete absolute truth, Satchit Ananda, right? And another way to understand the 3 phases is like, for example, if somebody is a teacher, right? Then if somebody knows from far, they know, oh, they had a website, they teach Sanskrit, they teach Gita. I'm talking, of course, about myself, right? Because I do this in a 6th class, so I'll give an example of myself. But that is energy. They only know the energy. They know only the impersonal features of a website and some vague things, right? But if somebody becomes their student, then they know, okay, this is how she talks. She laughs like this, or she studied Sanskrit, or she teaches like this, like this. Little bit details they will know. But let's say somebody stays with them in the home, like a child or a husband. They know everything about them. They know what she likes, what she doesn't like, how she gets irritated, how she, shouts sometimes, or, she has a house here and she does this routine, the sadhana in this day, during that day, and how does she engage herself during the day, and all the details she knows, right? But in a way, everybody knows that person, but people know in a different levels of details, right? You understand, right? Similarly, everybody is in the same realm of knowing the absolute truth still, but the details are revealed and the amount of happiness they get is different. So that's what I wanted to bring about. Clear so far, right? It's a little bit more technical. Clear, then we will wrap up here with the 3 yogis here. So the Jnana Yoga part is all focused on neti, means like it's not this, it's not this. They want to only see everything without any qualities. Even though this world is full of qualities and persons, they want to reject the personality. They want to reject the qualities. They want to see everything as impersonal Brahman. Actually, it's all just impersonal. Just I want to be the spark. That's it. I don't want any relationships. I don't want any dealing with any variety. They don't want anything two. They want only one. If they see two, they say there's nothing to exist. That's called Jnana Yoga path. It's very, very rigorous path. It's all about intellectualization, actually, and very impractical. And also, the final stage can be attained only by a sannyasi. Eventually, after many, many lives, they may practice this only in certain life when they are sannyasi and they perfect this knowledge. It's all about intellectually thinking, I am Brahman, I am Brahman, I am Brahman, or like that. They have to meditate on the Mahavakyas, Brahmasmi, Sarvam Khalu Idam Brahma. They have to meditate on these leanings. They have to discuss the Vyakhya from the Acharyas and keep just mentally, intellectually understanding. I am soul, I'm not even soul, I am spark, like that. That's a process. And Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, 12th chapter, if you want to know about this process, he says it's very, very difficult for a conditioned soul. Conditioned soul is conditioned to think about forms, about qualities. And we also think I'm a person. So how can I suddenly start thinking about, and what do I meditate on? If I meditate on anything which has features, then it's not this process. I have to meditate on just something which doesn't have any form. It's so impossible, so difficult to do that. But then this is the yogi or Ashtanga yogi or Dhyana yogi. Then slowly he meditates on the personal features at least, little bit. And this process I described earlier, right? You have to sit in a kusha mat and already we discussed, right? Just by chanting, by putting everything, you're able to not focus our mind. Imagine sitting even for 2 minutes, closing our eyes. How can we focus on anything? So this is also not practical for this age. Kali Yuga is meant with full of disturbance, and the age itself was very, very contaminated. And it's the last age. Satya Yuga meditation is meant for Satya Yuga. Satya, Treta, Dwapara, Kali Yuga. So we are in Kali Yuga where only the most fallen people take birth here. But then there is a wonderful silver lining in this age. Kalau doshani dherajan asti yeta mahan guna kirtana deva krishnasya mukta sangaparam vrajayet. So there is a silver lining in this age that kirtana deva krishnasya. By Krishna's kirtan, param vrajayet, mukta sangaha, he will get liberated and attain spiritual world. So that is because the age is so fallen and our lifespan is only 100 years, it's impossible to focus. The process is become simplified by doing Sankirtana. That is the process of Bhakti Yoga. So not only that they understand the Satchit Ananda form of the Krishna with the complete happiness, also the process also is very, very practical for this age. Okay. And there are always, when we talk about yoga ladder, I will talk about that. So now coming back to our categories of human beings, we already discussed this initially. Now we know what is a Jnana Yogi. He wants to become a spark in the impersonal Brahman, which is also actually in Supreme only. There's nothing wrong. It's also effulgence of Krishna only, no problem. Some people, they are fed up with the relationship in this world. They become very, very detached. They become very, very hard-hearted. So they don't want to be with relationships. It's okay. They can take this path. And Dhyana Yoga is like little bit, they have the ability to meditate, they want to do this path. Okay, they can take up this path. But people who want the complete absolute truth and who are attached to that person, then they take up the Bhakti Yoga. It seems like very simple, but actually it's it's actually more profound and better than these two or the higher path. That's what Krishna tells him. Bhagavad Gita also, we'll cover that. So we already discussed that there is only Sat, there is Sat and Chit, and this Sat Chit Ananda realization here. Okay. So now we'll come to yoga ladder. How do we align all these yogas? Like what is best, what is lowest? Like that. If not to do this is a chart we get. The lowest level, we have lawbreakers, right? They are lowest, nobody cares. They are going to go to this, face the karma and go down, go up, whatever it is. Then slowly karmakandas come where they want to follow the Vedas and still enjoy. They still have desire to enjoy and go to Sarga or maybe enjoy this life. Or sometimes there is a yajna to kill the enemy also. So some people, they go and do this yajna to kill their enemy. Then Nishkama Karma Yoga, where slowly they get detached and give up their results little bit, and then finally, then with that knowledge of detachment, they start coming to the impersonal path. okay, I am the soul, I am the soul, I am the soul. Aham Brahmasmi means I am the soul actually. I am spirit, I am spirit. Then after that, they feel okay, there's very frustrating, there's nothing very difficult in this process. I want a personal feature. Then they go to Ashtanga Yoga. Then they start, okay, I want to meditate on somebody who has form. But then higher to that is a Bhakti Yogi. After they meditate, they feel, oh, I'm meditating, but I want to have interaction with this person, not just sit and see this person. I want to talk to this person. I want to, give some food to this person. That person should talk to me. So then that complete interaction happens in Bhakti Yoga. So this actually, it's called a ladder way of the, like as if this is a topmost floor. You can either climb many, many lifetimes, step by step, you can come. And anybody, Prabhupada says, gets stuck at a particular stage. That is called a yogi of that stage. That's why we call karma yogi. That means he is just doing this. He cannot think about anything else. Jnana yogi, Ashtanga yogi. He's just at this level. He's just stuck at this level. That's it. He exited from this ladder. Bhakti yogi, he's at this level. But Srila Prabhupada says, even if you are a lawbreaker, right? If you take up Bhakti Yoga, it's like an elevator. You can immediately climb to the topmost floor. You don't need to gradually take up in many, many lifetimes. You see the point right now? First of all, these stages are very incomplete in realization when compared to the Bhakti Yoga. And happiness is also not so complete. So, and on top of it, you have to go so many lifetimes. Whilst if there is a way, I can directly take a staircase and come to the topmost level. That is the Bhakti Yoga. Okay, that's what Krishna declares. And after describing all the yogas, the 6th chapter, at the end, final conclusion, Krishna says, Yoginam api sarvesham madsadena daratana shraddhavan bhajate yoma same yuktatamo mataha. Me mataha. Krishna says, this is my opinion, because Krishna doesn't enforce our free will. He says, according to my opinion, sarvesham yoginam api, among all the yogis, Shraddhavan yo bhajati, mam bhajate. The one who with faith, who worships me, mat gatena antaratmana, with always thinking of me within their heart, that person is actually yukta tamaha. Yukta is also coming from the same dhatu yuj. Yukta is a ta pratyaya. So that person is united with me in yoga, and tamaha. Tamaha is used whenever we have to tell the topmost. Like when you say good, better, best, right? To tell best, we use tamaha. To tell better, we use taraha. Like that. So, itta taraha, Krishna didn't say. He says, itta tamaha, it's the best according to him is the Bhakti Yoga. That is Krishna's opinion, of course. We may differ based on our attachment and conditioning, and we may choose one of these other paths. But that's up to us. Eventually, we may come to that. And the other wonderful thing is, if only somebody is stuck at these levels, by the association of devotees, we can come and take up the elevator. As if like at every floor, there is again entrance to the elevator, right? Like that. So this dotted line is the association of devotees, where they talk about how they relish their bhakti process and how they relish the association with Krishna and the reciprocation, everything. And they talk about it, we feel like, oh, rather I do that, why am I doing this difficult process? I'm not getting much happiness. I want to be with such joyful people, and I want to follow a process which is joyful and reach the final goal, which is also very joyful. So that was his direct method, and association of devotees does that. So to explain the power of sadhu sangha, this is a pastime described. There is a hunter called Mugrari. He used to be such a hunter that, of course, hunter means he has to hunt animals. But he used to be so cruel that he used to shoot the arrow and leave the animal half killed. So that animal can struggle in pain and die. So that's how cruel is. One is to hunt the animal, okay, he can kill it in one shot. Or, he used to get pleasure in seeing the animal cry in pain and dying. So that's how he was so fallen. And Narada Muni, he's actually, Narada Muni is a great devotee. He can go anywhere and talk to anybody. So he's seeing this cruel, animals dying with so much pain to compassion. It's like, okay, why are you doing like this? Don't do like this. Then he said, this is my duty. This is how I earn my living. I don't hunt until I live. Then he said, no, you're going to face a lot of reactions for this. That's what he told. Then he said, okay, you take up a bhakti process which will help you elevate yourself because you're conditioned for this. Then he told, okay, utter the name of Rama. He said, tell Rama, 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 tell that. Then he's so contaminated, he cannot even pronounce Rama like this. Like, tongue is not twisting. He cannot tell that. Then Narada Muni says, okay, you tell Mara, Mara. Mara means to kill. He used to always kill, right? So he used to tell Mara, 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 Mara. Slowly it became Rama, Rama, Rama. By that, uttering the name again, and hearing again, he became completely purified. That eventually, what happens is that actually became such a saintly person that one day when Narada Muni comes to visit him again, on the way coming, he saw some ants going. So he was always hopping in a very, very, he was walking very crookedly and coming. And Narada Muni asked, why your guru has come and you are coming like this without walking properly. Then he says, oh Guruji, there are ants. I don't want to step on the ants. That's the reason I'm coming like this. See, you can see how much the process of association of devotees can transform a person from such a cruel mentality, such a simple life to become a sadhu, right? So the the catalyst is association of devotees. That's why our scriptures glorify association of devotees like anything. Sadhu sanga sarva shastra taya lavamatra sadhu sange sarva siddhi haya. See, sarva shastra, all shastras tell sadhu sanga, hey, great sadhu sanga, lavamatra, very little association with a sadhu sanga will causes sarva siddhi hoye, all the auspicious, whatever we want, we will get it. Right? Because the sadhu will always talk about bhakti, will always talk about Krishna, and if you in their association, you only remember Krishna and how to attain that spiritual world. So that's the power of sadhu sanga. Now, coming back to this bhakti yoga, the topmost yoga system, in a very nice paragraph, Prabhupada, in his purport of 6.47, the verse we discussed earlier, Yoginama Krishna Vesham, he summarizes all the yoga processes in one very powerful purport. So I thought it's it's nice to read this. Who are comfortable to read can read this quickly.
The culmination of all kinds of yoga practice lies in bhakti yoga. All other yogas are but means to come to point of bhakti in bhakti yoga. Yoga actually means bhakti yoga. All other yogas are progression towards the destination of bhakti yoga. From the beginning, karma yoga, to the end of bhakti yoga is a long way to self-realization. Karma yoga without fruitive results is the beginning of this path. When karma yoga increases in knowledge and renunciation, the stage is called Jnana yoga. When
Jnana yoga.
Jnana yoga.
No, jnana.
Jnana yoga. Okay. When Jnana yoga increases in meditation on the super soul by different physical process and the mind is on him, it is called Ashtanga yoga. And when one surpasses the Ashtanga yoga and comes to the point of supreme personality of Godhead Krishna, it is called Bhakti yoga. The culmination, factually, Bhakti yoga is the ultimate goal.
So very nicely, Srila Prabhupada summarizes. So the beginning of the yoga process starts with Nishkama Karma Yoga, without the fruitive results. And then gradually, based on, that person gains some knowledge. Then he comes to Jnana Yoga platform. Then he starts meditating on the super soul, different processes like Yama, Niyama, Kumara. Then find his focus. Then he will become Ashtanga Yogi. Then finally, he come to Bhakti Yoga, the final stage. So this is a step-by-step process. But if we somehow are aware of this process directly, we can take up wherever we are. Okay. So that's why actually it may take many lifetimes. Bahunam janmanam ante jnanavan mam prapadyate Vasudeva Sarvamiti Samahatma Sudurlabha. So, Bahunam Janmanam Ante, the end of many, many lives, Jnanavan, one who is in full knowledge. See, we talked about Vatup, right? Bhagavan, we told, right? Similarly, Jnanavan means one who has Jnana. Bhagavan, one who has Pagas. That Jnanavam, Mam Prapadyate, he surrenders to me. How he surrenders? Vasudeva Sarvam. Krishna, you are everything to me. Such a person, that Mahatma, Saha Mahatma, Sudurlabha, very, very rare. So the person who comes to the conclusion after many, many lifetimes that, okay, Krishna, you are everything to me. I want to devote my life to you. That person is a Mahatma actually, and is a very rare person. And that's why Krishna loves that person also very much. Because he doesn't want anything from this world. He doesn't want spiritual, he doesn't want Svarga, he doesn't want anything. He just wants to serve him only, Krishna. So Krishna also reciprocates. Ye yatama prapadyante tam sataiva bhajamyaham mama vartman vartante manisha partha sarvasha. Krishna says, as one surrenders unto me, I reciprocate to them accordingly. So Krishna is also a person. So he knows the intensity and the intent. So he accordingly reciprocates with us. So the another question somebody may ask, little bit more clause here, is that, okay, I take up any yoga process, forget it, whatever you're inclined to. And in this life, I try to do certain thing. So to some extent, I'll do. What if I die? Right? What will happen? Do they lose everything? Or what will happen to me? You know, what is happening? That's very important thing also to note. So any progress we do in the yoga process, it's like eternal bank balance for us. Always in the next life, we'll pick up from there. Krishna will create situations. He will be given a body according to our karma, according to the material nature, appropriate body is given. But at the right time, our awakening starts. For some people, it could be very early in the age, or some people it could be 20 years, or some people it's 40 years. It doesn't matter. Exactly at the right age, we will be again getting attracted, and we pull towards this knowledge like that. So that is described, the destination. Actually, Arjuna also asks in Bhagavad Gita, Krishna, you're telling this yoga process seems very difficult. What if, I don't complete it? Am I like a failure? In the sense, I gave up the material enjoyment, right? And I'm following the spiritual process, and I didn't even perfect the spiritual path. So I'm neither here nor there. So will I be like a failure in both places? That's what Krishna actually answers in these 4 verses. I'm not going to read these verses, but if you want, you can take a screenshot and read this also later. But I will summarize this flow in its diagram. Okay, so it's all in 6.41 to 44. Okay, if you want to read the English later. So I will summarize this in a form of a diagram. So what Arjuna asks is like, am I like a cloud? Let's say there is a big cloud, which is material enjoyment. And there is a small cloud, which is spiritual. Let's say spiritual thing. And let's say there's a small piece of the cloud separates from the big cloud to go try to join the small cloud. But I'm in the middle. And somehow these clouds disappear somewhere. So am I going to be, nowhere? That's what, like a riven cloud. Arjuna uses the example called riven, broken cloud. Am I like that? Then Krishna answers is very important for us. What he says that, let's say you stop your yoga process after short amount of practice. Means maybe short could be relative. It could be maybe only in one lifetime, or it could be only maybe 2-3 months, or like that. Short amount of practice, that it's actually compared to not the time, it's amount of the realization, how much ahead you go in the spiritual path basically. If you do after short amount of practice, but because you have material desires and you gave up the process, then you will be taken birth in the place where there's enjoyment in the higher planets. You will get the Svargaloka, so that you can fulfill the propensity for enjoyment there, and again take birth again in the family of rich aristocracy, or in the family of pious Brahmanas. So you can continue your spiritual journey. So by being born in a rich family, you don't have to work for your day-to-day food. The food is given to you. All you have to do, suddenly if you get attracted again to the process, then you can pick it up and devote yourself to the spiritual life. Or if you're born in a family of a Brahmanas, and from childhood the Vedic culture will be there, then again it will give you stimulus to take up the process again. But Krishna takes care. Okay, you have desires, so I will fulfill the desires first and I will give you the chance. But that's for the person who practices after short time. But if there is a person who practices for a long time, that means he's very, very advanced. He's already, devoting his life to Krishna and is thinking about Krishna, trying to think about Krishna, but somehow, he has an accidental death or he couldn't perfect as much as is needed completely. He doesn't become completely pure or he commits offenses or something he does. What will happen? Such a person immediately takes birth in the family of devotees. So right from childhood, the devotional culture is given. The parents eat only prasadam and they give only prasadam. They start talking about Krishna. They talk about Bhagavad Gita, Bhagavatam, and they teach them values from the childhood. It becomes part of their life. That they kids also they start chanting the Hare Krishna Mahamantra from childhood. So they are actually, that's why Srila Prabhupada also says the devotees who are born to devotee families are like Vaikuntha children. Prabhupada says they are very, very special. They are completing their journey. So we should take care of them nicely and give them the spiritual impetus, environment, so they don't again waste their life in doing current jobs. So it's a duty of the parents. Mata na sasya, pita na sasya. The parents' duty is to give that environment, devotional environment for the children, so that they don't need to again spend 20 years learning all these things and undoing again like all of us. They can accelerate their progress and do as much as possible in this life. That's why Srila Prabhupada says, we have tried to enjoy so many lifetimes. Every time we failed. That's the reason, we have come here now again in this material world. At least one life to Krishna. Prabhupada says, just give one life to Krishna and see what happens. First of all, you'll be happy in this life as a devotee and you will attain as much as possible. You make progress in the process so that next life will be better and better and better. So that's the crux. Okay, so there's nothing to worry. Even if as much as you do, if you're not able to do more, no problem. It's okay. But it's eternal bank balance. It comes with you. So the final meditation for today's session is that Dhyadasya charanam dhruvasya chavayo vidya gajendrasya ka tukchayaha kimunama adikam intat sudamnodhanam vamshako vidurasya yadavapate uprasya kim paurusham Bhaktya dushyati kevalam na jagangunai bhakti priyo madhava. So this is called Shardula Vikriditam. That's a meter we should sing. So what it says is that Madhava or Krishna is Bhakti Priyaha. He loves only devotion. Bhaktya tushyati. He is pleased only with devotion. Kevalam bhaktya eva tushyati. Nacha gunaihi. He has so many qualities. Without devotion, he is not pleased with that. For example, Yadasya Acharanam Kim. What was the character of a Vyada? This is another Vyada. Vyada is nothing but hunter. We talked about one hunter, Mugrari. There is another hunter described in Mahabharatam where he used to do this duty of hunting or selling the meat. But then he used to consider his parents as deities. And actually, because of the curse, he gets this Janma and he does it and he has full realization from the previous, he was a scholar in the previous life, he has full realization, but then because of the curse, he lives this life, but internally, he is always doing it as a service to Vishnu and just maintaining his duty as a hunting thing. But he got eventually liberated, that person. Dhruvasya Vayaha thing. What is the age of Dhruva? Dhruva was only 5 years old. He got direction from Nardamani. Again, this verse emphasizes the association of devotees. And he got the mantra Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. And he perfected that. And he attained Vishnu's darshan. Vishnu touched his head and gave him the ability to say prayers at 5 years. And then he got the highest planet because he divided material wealth. Gajendrasya Mithya. Gajendra is the elephant. Gajendra is a very popular pastime. 9th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. He was a king and he was enjoying with his wife and female elephants, and he has a consciousness Krishna kept even as an elephant. He made him remember the yoga he already performed, that when crocodile caught him and he was dragging him to the water and he was taking his life away. His wives could not protect him and he could not protect him, even though he's such a royal elephant. Then, without having any option, he just takes a lotus flower with the trunk and offers to Vishnu and cries out wonderful prayers, Rajendra Moksha, it is called. And pleased with his surrender, Vishnu comes in Garuda airplane and cuts, chops off the head of the crocodile and protects him.
Yeah, we don't eat any.
So, like that. Similarly, Kubjayaha Kunurupam. Kubja is a lady who is Ashtavakra. She has bends in 8 places in her body. And she gets attracted to Krishna and Balrama when they enter Mathura. Right? And then she wants to offer some. She was actually a lady who keeps a sense for Kamsa. So she wanted to offer this special scent to Krishna. And she gets very attracted in a conjugal way to Krishna. And Krishna accepted that the emotion she has, that she wants to serve me something. And he actually delivers her by actually he touches little steps on her feet and he lifts her with her like this and he makes her straight and immediately she gets youthful beauty and he fixes her and like that. So that's how Krishna is so kind. And Sudama is a Brahmana, childhood friend of Krishna. He didn't know what to give to Krishna because he was so poverty. His wife says, "Your king, your friend, childhood friend, is actually now king of Dwaraka. We don't have anything to give to our children; they are dying. Please go to him and ask him some money." But Sudama says, "How can I ask anything from my friend? I don't have anything to give also. When we meet a king or a friend, we should give something." So they borrowed some neighbor, a Chitras, and he comes to meet Krishna. So when he comes, then Krishna, and he very hesitant to give that to Krishna because it's like, oh, Krishna is such a royal opulence, here. What is this here? Chitras, what will Krishna do? Wasn't it pleasing? But Krishna understands the heart. He actually snatches that from him. He says, "You're hiding something from him," and he eats with so much eagerness, Krishna. So much, actually, the Rukmini Devi stops because it said that one gulp Krishna gave away his wealth. Second gulp, it was putting his, his other more opulence. The third gulp, Krishna was going to give himself to him. And so he said, "Krishna, if you go, what will I do?" So she stops Krishna. And actually, Krishna says, I cannot reciprocate with Sudama. And he becomes ashamed. Why Krishna becomes ashamed? He feels Sudama went beyond his limit and went to his neighbor to borrow and give to me, right, to offer me. But I cannot go beyond my limit. Everything is within my limit. There's nothing beyond my limit. I cannot go beyond my limit to give something to Sudama. So he gets very ashamed, Krishna. That's why Sudama actually goes empty-handed. But when he goes, he sees a beautiful house and jewelry, everything comes. But you can see Krishna's mood that he wants to reciprocate to that bhava or the emotion of the devoted. Similarly, Vidura is born of a maid, right, in the Silapura. But then Krishna delivered Vidura. They only existed in earlier class that he actually told Dhritarashtra Maharaj, kick away your son. And Duryodhana overhears that. And he kicks Vidura out of the kingdom. Get out of here. We eat our food and you're going like this. Get out. But then Vidura understands this mercy of Krishna that I don't have to be participating in this war and fighting with the Kauravas against Pandavas. And he goes to the pilgrimages. Okay. So similarly, Vidura and then Yadavapati Ugrasena Maharaj also. Right? He is also bound up by Kamsa. But he doesn't have any Paurusham or bravery. But Krishna protected him and killed the Kamsa and he gave him the kingship. So, because Krishna got attracted to their devotion, not with their qualities. That's the essence of this shloka. So, summarizing what we have discussed is what is yoga. Yoga are the broader meaning, that is the control of mind and senses, as well as to unite again with the Supreme. The categories of human beings, based on that, we have different yoga processes. And we also touched upon again supreme source of Krishna, the source of Brahman and Paramatma, because the Jnana Yogis approach Brahman and Jnana Yogis or Ashtanga Yogis meditate on the Paramatma, which are aspects of Krishna. We also discussed the yoga ladder, which is a staircase but also there's elevated path directly one take of bhakti by the association of devotees. And the Krishna himself describes Bhakti Yoga as a topmost yoga system. Generally, people think, oh, Bhakti Yoga is meant for sentimentalists. Actually, you should do dhyana and keep meditating. No. But Bhakti Yoga is the most sublime, and as Krishna tells, right, after many, many lives of jnana, when it comes to the conclusion of Bhakti Yoga, to give oneself to Krishna, right? And we also discussed if you fail at any point, there's no harm. You can always continue from next life. Krishna will give us the opportunity. It's nothing to worry. And Krishna is only pleased with devotion. So that's the wrap up here. So we'll end with Shri Krishna Arpanamastu. Then we will open for any questions or discussion or anything. So actually, I wanted to share one thing. I told that my cousin, my mama's son, he listens to the recordings. So he sent me a personal note. Oh, Akka, I listened to 6 sessions. I was eagerly looking for the karma discussion and last time. And he said, I listened to the karma. I really enjoy the sessions. The time you are taking and the illustrations you are putting and the question answers especially. So that's what I wanted to thank all of you, even though few people, all of you ask genuine questions and you are also sincerely trying to practice. Because of that, the discussion which entails helps so many people. So I wanted to thank you for supporting at least until this far that we have come. I think within 4 or 5 sessions, we will be able to wrap up the series. So that's where we are at. So any thoughts or reflections or comments?
Hare Krishna. Sujata, thank you so much, Pranati. Yes, karma, last session, right? We discussed about karma. That really enlightens many people, and it gives a very good knowledge because we as a human, we will have many questions. So generally, this law of karma will answer many of our questions and our confusions. So yeah, that session was very useful. And again, this Bhakti Yoga, this is also very important session for everybody, I feel, because we generally we choose many paths to get answers, to reach to God and all. But what is the ultimate one and very effective one? This answers like Bhakti Yoga. Yeah, that's why. Yeah, I like this session and it is very informative and thank you so much, Pranati, for
Yes.
your efforts in making all these slides and in making us understand.
Thank
What
you. It's, I feel very grateful that I'm getting this opportunity. Like, otherwise, what will I do with my time? I quit my job. What will I do? Whole day I cannot keep reading. If I prepare something which I can share, my life will be used improperly. Thank you so much. Okay, Bharati, you have to say something.
Yeah, thank you so much, Pranati. I really appreciate the efforts that you are putting, and it's so knowledgeable. We are able to get the purpose of life from you. It's what I feel is we have been known for each other since 25 years, more than 25 years, and see, it is so. We were not talking for a long time, and I feel that I am really fortunate to have a friend like you, who is passing message about the purpose of life. Yeah, so very much thankful to you.
Very nice. All of you are very, very fortunate. It doesn't happen, this association with devotees. It's all ordained by Krishna. Krishna, when they're pleased with, certain, this thing, that eagerness or something is there, that's when the first installment of Krishna's mercy is association of devotees. So we are just trying to be instrument, but all of you are also very fortunate. So, it doesn't matter where we are in the process, the person is the highest level or person at lowest level. As long as we are in the process, we will just for sure reach the destination, this life or next life. So, very, very special souls. So, I'm very grateful and thankful to all of you again. So, I'm very happy for this opportunity. So, thank you so much. So, we'll wrap up here then. Hare Krishna. Then see you next week.
Yeah, thank you, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.